seventh grade. Hopefully everybody's doing all right, feeling well rested and ready to talk about landforms. This week we will be focusing on landforms and on climates and whatnot. So big world, a lot to study. I'm going to give you a brief intro today, and then we'll go a little bit further in depth tomorrow. So I hope everybody's feeling good and looking forward to this. All right, so let's get started. Earth's landforms. One of the things I wanted to do is, you know me, I like to give you a little bit of trivia. And the reason I like to do that is because, well, you never know, trivia night, win those free nachos, I'm telling you right now. So wanted you to know, Mississippi River Delta forms out there in the Gulf of Mexico. You guys all probably knew that, but it is shaped roughly like a triangle. It's massively built up by mud and sand. And if you looked at both the Nile and the Mississippi deltas, they produce massive, massive crops of high-grade cotton. The size of a delta is always determined by the strength of the river and how it's flowing. And the delta of Mississippi is one of the largest in the world. It's actually bigger than the Niles. The only other delta that's actually bigger would be the Amazons, because it has the strongest flow of any of the rivers on the planet. So this week we're going to be looking at a couple of different things. We're going to be looking at mountains and hills. These are considered different because of the steep peaks and the other hills that are lower and more rounded. It's basically an elevation thing. I'll give you those elevations later. In between mountains are valleys, and a valley, much like anything else, is just lower land. That's all we're describing. So some of you guys live in the Shiloh Valley. We're on a ridge over here. This is kind of considered more of a hill or a ridge. And then in between us and the Bell Valley Ridge, or the Belfair Ridge, you have a valley. That's the Shiloh Valley. And there's also the Mississippi Valley, which is in between the bluffs of the Mississippi and Missouri. So you've got all sorts of stuff like that for valleys and whatnot. Canyons are steep and sided, and they're lowlands. Those are created by rivers. So like when you look at the Grand Canyon and how deep it is and how big it is, that's all formed by the Colorado River. And that took thousands upon thousands of years and millions of years of geologic time. That's related to your weathering and your erosion. And the rivers are slowly eroding. Fast forward 5 million years around here, the Mississippi is not going to be a valley, but it will probably be like a gorge or a canyon. All right. So this is a picture of the Blue Ridge Mountains over in Georgia. These are higher. This is part of the Appalachian Mountain Range. It's over North Georgia. Gorgeous place. Highly recommend. Plains and plateaus are considered different, again, due to elevation. We'll talk a little bit more about how those get formed. Plains are just low-lying stretches of flat land. You guys live in what is considered one of the plains states. And if you go around, you'll notice we have a lot of flat land that was formed by glacial activity, and the retreating of glaciers and whatnot is one of the reasons why this area, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Ohio, Indiana, all used to be part of what was like Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes. Well, those are glaciers retreating, and as they compress the ground down in there. Plateaus are flat, but they are also located at very high elevations. They're created in different forms. You have volcanic activity that helps create those things, and then erosion and whatnot, flattening them out with wind and whatnot. Narrow strips of land that connect larger pieces of land, we call these isthmuses. And isthmuses are a good example of an isthmus. Let's see, I went to school in Wisconsin. They have an isthmus out there. It's actually also the name of the school newspaper. It's basically just kind of like a little strip of land surrounded by larger areas of water. Panama is a good example of an isthmus. When you look at Panama and whatnot. Peninsulas are landforms, and they have water on 3 sides. So I grew up in the state of Florida. That's a peninsula. There are huge peninsulas like that. There are smaller peninsulas. There's, peninsulas. You could argue that the southern part of the African continent is a peninsula. Water on 3 sides. Florida's a peninsula. There's a Crimean peninsula. If you've got water on 3 sides, but there is a piece of that land connected to a larger landmass, then you are considered a peninsula. Then islands, these are always easy. These are just bodies of land that are surrounded by a body of water. So like, Hawaii, there's islands that are located in rivers. Some islands can be really tiny, some can be really big. The world's largest island is Greenland. It's a massive island, but it's still an island. All right. We'll also be looking at bodies of water this week and kind of ocean currents and all of those types of things. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. Now, that's fresh and salt water. All right. So most of that, though, you can't drink. It's mostly salt water. The salt water, which is the oceans, Arctic, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, and our new Southern Ocean, which is what's the ocean or the body of water that surrounds Antarctica. Those are salt water. Now there are areas where rivers are dumping into it, make it brackish, still not drinkable. But most of that water, if you look at that percentage, 98%, means that's a lot of the salt water, which leaves us 2% fresh water, which is the water you and I can drink. That's why water is such a valuable resource nowadays, okay? Only 2% of the world's water is drinkable. And it is, it comes from the rain, it comes out of the groundwater, it comes from rivers, it comes from springs, all of those things, it gets filtered through aquifers, but only 2%. We got 7.5 billion people on the planet right now. So that is not much for a lot of folks, and that number's growing. So 80% of all the fresh water is currently frozen in glaciers. They are saying that that's how we're going to get it. And you go in and you harvest it, or you can melt it, or you get it from groundwater and whatnot. When we look at bodies of water also have different names. And this is so you know what you're looking at. And basically, it's based on size. A strait is just a body of water that's in between two pieces of land, and it might connect two larger bodies of water. But you have like the Magellan Straits down in South America, but they're real narrow. They're not very big, and it connects like the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean. A channel is just like a strait, but frankly, it's just a little bit wider. Straits are very narrow. Channels are a little bit wider. So if you look at the English Channel, which separates the island of Great Britain and the British Isles from the rest of mainland Europe, it's a little bit wider. You're talking 19, 20 miles. That's it though. It's not that wide. Rivers are long, narrow bodies of water, which is usually have a source that starts in the mountains or from streams. We live right by one of the great rivers on the planet, the Mississippi River, and its source is all the way up there in Minnesota, and it comes all the way down and empties into the Gulf of Mexico. Deltas, we talked about at the beginning of the PowerPoint, and these are areas where it's part of the case of erosion and the rebuilding of things. So the dirt that is being pushed from one part, so case in point, the mud from like say Minnesota and Illinois is being deposited down here in Louisiana in the Mississippi Delta, and that's at the mouth of the river. The mouth of the river is the end of the river. The mouth of a river is the end of the river, and then the source of the river is where the river begins. A lot of people can misconstrue that the mouth of the river is the beginning. That's not. That's where a river ends. So just kind of a little thing you need to remember. Think of it like this. If you're spitting something out or something, it's coming out your mouth. It's the end. It's not the beginning. It's the end. The water is coming out at the mouth. People usually settle near rivers due to the availability of the fresh water. When you looked at early civilizations, all of them started around a freshwater source like a river and whatnot. The Egyptians were by the Nile River. The Chinese were by the Hung River. The Indus River Valley people of India were around the Indus River. Mesopotamia, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Got to have that water. Remember, 2% is drinkable, and most of that 2% is frozen in glaciers. So rivers are wildly important even today. So that's why it's important to keep our water clean. All right. I hope that was a lot of fun for you. We will talk more about this. I will have your definitions posted today. I posted them yesterday, but remember, we agreed they're due. Just remember Wednesday night. That's tomorrow night by midnight. All right, guys. We will stop the screen share there. And I will hope to see you at the Zoom today. All right. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.